Well, welcome back. This video is going to be about part 3 in the Vermont School Bus Manual. I hope parts 1 and 2 went okay for you. I know they're a little dry, but the discussion that I gave you should help you get through them. There are some important questions in there, so if you need to, read through it again. This is going to be part 3. We're going to get started on railroad stops. And we'll put some video clips in for you on this. Just to make it a little more practical, a little more visual for you. Hopefully it'll go better. But remember to have this book along with you, follow along as we go, and underline the important parts. So let's get started on proper railroad stops. Okay, you'll notice on the first page it says proper stopping procedures for coming to a railroad grade crossing. Be sure to remember those 3 words you see there. Stop, look, and listen. Those are important words. They may be on the test. Look through the procedures of how to actually stop. So 200 feet before the crossing, you're going to activate your four-way flashers, not your amber lights, your four-way flashers. Then tap your brakes to let people behind you know that you're coming to a stop. Tell the students to be silent because you're coming to a railroad crossing. And activate your noise deactivation device, which will turn off all radios and blowers and basically silence the bus. Then remember to stop 15 to 50 feet from the closest rail. When you stop, put the bus in neutral, apply the parking brake, open your driver's door and window for a Type 1 bus. For Type 2 bus, just open the driver's window. Remember, Type 2 buses are a vehicle that carries more than 10 passengers and fewer than 16. After you have looked and listened twice, then you can close your door and window, put the bus in drive, take your park brake off, and proceed through. Remember, if the gate comes down at this time or the lights come on, proceed through anyway, even if you have to crash through the gate. When you get completely through to the other side, then you can turn your four-way flashers off and reactivate your noise deactivation device. Now let's take a look at a short video on this subject.
This driver will activate his four-way flashers 200 feet before the stop, tapping his brakes to let people behind him know he's coming to a stop, and raising his hand to let the children know he's coming to a railroad crossing. Also, activating the noise deactivation device. He'll stop 15 to 50 feet from the closest rail. Put the bus in neutral, his park brake on, open his door and window. Failure to open the door or stop at a crossing is a $248 fine, both. After looking and listening twice to make sure the coast is clear, puts the bus in drive, release the brake and cross all the way before he turns off his four-way flashers. Now let's take a look at it from the driver's perspective. When coming to a railroad crossing, this driver will activate his four-way flashers 200 feet before the crossing. He'll tap his brakes to let drivers behind him know he's coming to a stop, and he'll activate his noise deactivation device. He'll put his hand up to let the children know he's coming to a railroad crossing. He'll also stop 15 to 50 feet from the closest rail. When stopped, he'll put the bus in neutral and apply the park brake. He'll open his window and his door, making sure the master switch is off. After looking and listening twice, he closes the door, puts the bus in drive, and releases the park brake. Continuing across the track, he will leave his four-way flashers on until he is completely across the track, and reactivate your noise activation device.
When it comes to multiple tracks, make sure you have enough room on the other side of the track before you get to the next track, especially if there's a traffic control device there or any vehicles waiting in line. Be sure the entire area is clear before crossing the track. Now look under railroad traffic control devices. The only one allowed to direct you across a railroad track is a law enforcement officer or a railroad attendant. That is, if a train gets stopped on the tracks, the bells are going, or whatever's happening, If you can go across the track, the only one who is allowed to direct you across the track is a railroad attendant or a law enforcement officer. Now, if nobody is around and the lights and gate appear to be malfunctioning, you must call your dispatcher for further instructions. Now, if your bus gets stuck on the tracks for whatever reason, you must evacuate the bus, get everybody off, and lead them away from the track and towards the oncoming train at an angle. Now, under exempt crossings, if there is a sign at the railroad crossing that says exempt, you don't have to stop at that railroad track. If the railroad wants to use that track for any reason, they have to have a flagger there, which would warn you of a train coming. Now, under Title 23, Section 1072, what vehicles must stop at these railroad crossings is where the section gets its authority. It describes that all vehicles must stop in this manner unless it's a taxi or the vehicle carrying more than 7 passengers, including the driver, has to stop. Of course, all buses have to stop, and all multifunction vehicles, all multifunction school activity vehicles have to stop as well. This also includes hazardous waste vehicles, a vehicle carrying explosives or flammable liquid materials. Now, Section B here is an important one. This is where the authority comes for a railroad attendant to guide you across a railroad track, or a law enforcement officer. But it also describes traffic control devices. If there is a traffic light at this railroad crossing, then the light controls your movement. If it's green, you can go right on through it. Now, be sure to read through all of Section 1072 to be sure to understand all that we have been talking about. Also read the section under railroad grade facts. Some interesting stuff there. I've never seen a test question on this, but you should read through it anyway. Now let's look at this section of passengers loading and unloading. This is probably the most dangerous time, and it's the most important one for you to learn, because this is where the most vulnerable is getting on and off a school bus. Even though the bus is equipped with red lights, flashing red lights, and a stop sign that comes out, sometimes another vehicle will not stop before those lights or the stop sign. They'll blow right by it. So you really have to be observant and watch both ways before signaling for the passengers to get on or telling them to go ahead and get off. Under the next paragraph, it tells us that all school buses have to be equipped with an 8-light warning system. The red lights and amber lights is what it's talking about. And that you must use these every time you discharge or board students. No exceptions, and it doesn't matter where it is. But it also says it can only be used for that. If you're stopping in the road to discharge an adult or something else that's not legal, you're not supposed to use those lights unless you're discharging or boarding students only. And the other very important topic in this paragraph is that the only one that is authorized to direct anyone around these lights is a law enforcement officer. Now let's go over the procedures for stopping a school bus to load students. 200 feet before the stop, activate your amber lights. Now, on a Type 2 school bus, if you're not equipped with a lighting system, activate your four-way flashers. Now, this next element is a controversial one. For state law in Vermont, it says to keep your bus in the center of the lane. Don't move it to the right or to the left. Read it for yourself, it'll tell you why. But federal law says move the bus as far as you can to the right. It also tells you why. When you're taking your test, you'll understand which test you're taking, and you'll know how to answer it. Next, after you've checked all your mirrors and you've checked all the traffic to make sure everything is stopped and it's safe for students to board, then you can open your door. and give them the signal to board the bus. Now, having stopped the bus 10 feet away from any students so that you can see them clearly, be sure to put your bus in neutral and set the park brake. After you've checked your mirrors and make sure that everybody has stopped and it's safe to go, you can open your door and allow the students to board. If there's any students on the other side of the road that have to cross, make sure that they know to wait for your signal for them to cross the road. That way you can see better than they can if anything's coming. And make sure you teach them to wait for your signal before crossing the road. And if you happen to lose track of one of those students, be sure to secure the bus, take the key with you, and go and look for them. But after all the students are on board and seated, then you can close the door, which turns off the red lights, and proceed. Now, for unloading students, the process is similar. You stop the bus, put the bus in neutral, apply the park brake, and turn your red lights on. After checking your mirrors and traffic, make sure everybody is stopped, then you can open the door and let the students out. Make sure they stay 10 feet away from the bus, especially those that are going to cross the road. Have them stay 10 feet away from your bus and wait for your signal for safety for them to cross the road, because they can't see behind the bus and any cars that might be running your red light. Give them the signal, let them cross the road. If you lose track of one, secure the bus, take the key with you, and go and find them before you continue. After the students have unloaded, you can carry on, put the vehicle in drive, release the park brake, and carry on. But if you happen to miss the stop of the student, don't back up. Don't ever back up to the stop. You're going to have to go find a turnaround and come back, or call your dispatcher and ask for instructions. Now let's take a look at a video of a driver unloading students.
Welcome to School Bus 101. The most important job of a school bus driver is to keep the kids you're transporting safe. And the most dangerous time for kids riding a school bus is when they're loading and unloading. State and federal laws give very specific instructions on how a bus driver must perform these tasks. Your CDL school bus endorsement test will include at least one student stop where you will have 3 students unloading and crossing the road in front of you. Let's take a look at those procedures. When approaching your stop, activate your amber warning lights 200 feet before the stop. On most buses, it will look like this. Be sure to press the switch all the way forward. When approaching the stop, stay in the center of your lane. Federal law says to pull the bus to the right before stopping. Vermont state law says to keep the bus in the center of the lane. You'll find this on page 25 in the Vermont School Bus Manual. Stop the bus at least 10 feet from where you would usually pick up the students, since the first 10 feet around a school bus is the most dangerous. Place the bus in neutral and set your park brake. If your bus is equipped with a 3-way door switch, move the switch to the halfway position. This will keep the door closed while activating your red lights and extending your stop sign. If your students are crossing the road, be sure to have instructed them to stay 10 feet away from your front bumper and to watch for your signal before crossing the road. If you lose track of a student, you must secure the bus, take the key out of the ignition, and find the student before continuing. After they have crossed the road, close the door switch all the way and move your amber switch to the off position. If you don't turn this switch off every time, and you forget it when you come to a railroad crossing, your stop sign will extend and your red lights will come on, which is a violation. If this happens during your driving test, it's an automatic fail. Now place your shifting lever into drive, release the park brake, and continue to the next stop.
Next comes Title 23 sections, again, giving the authority to what we've just read, especially about equipment on a school bus and how it's supposed to be used and not used, and also about passing a school bus. This gives authority to law enforcement about vehicles that pass the school bus with its red lights on and the stop sign out. Now, if something like this happens to you, be sure to try to get a license plate, identify the car and the person in it. Now, that's next to impossible, and most law enforcement agencies in Vermont won't touch it if you can't get all that information in detail. Fortunately, cameras are catching up to school buses, and photos are being taken of these, and that's helping a great deal. Now, the next section, section 1015, is giving emergency vehicles the authority to go through red lights, to pass, to stand contrary to law. But they still have to stop for a school bus displaying its red lights and a stop sign. However, a bus driver seeing the approach of an emergency vehicle must do everything he can to get the students to safety and extinguish those lights so the emergency vehicles can pass. Be sure to read this entire section thoroughly. There's some good stuff in there, and it will relate to everything we've been talking about. Now look at this next section under passing. Vulnerable user is an important word for you to remember. When passing a vulnerable user, another vehicle or a bicycle or whatever, be sure to allow 4 feet of clearance all around before you pass and after you pass them. So this means any oncoming traffic will have to be clear, and it'll have to be enough room for you to do this. Now also, if you're being passed, be sure to slow down a little bit and pull to the right. These are both test questions, so be sure to read through this section and know what it says. All right, well, let's take a look at what the book says about locations not to pass at. The first one there is on hills. Obviously, you don't want to pass on a hill you can't see what's on the other side. That's a pretty obvious one. The other one is around curves, same way. If there's something blocking your view, you can't see past the curve. Yeah, that's another obvious place not to pass at. Railroad crossings is a definite no-no. Don't pass at railroad crossings. Very particular about that. The other one is intersections, of course. And if you remember from your driver's ed when you first got your license, intersections are where most accidents occur. So don't pass at intersections. And the next line, remember these words right here. Changed path ahead. Don't pass if you see a changed path ahead. It's unclear exactly what that phrase means, but take it for what it's worth. Remember those 3 words. You may see it on the test. You'll know how to answer it now if you see the words changed path ahead. You don't pass at those locations. And now you'll see the title and section for the authority on everything we've just covered in passing. Title 23, Section 1033. Just gives that authority. Read through it. It gives some specifics there, and it might help you remember what we've just read as well. Now in this section, school bus idling, there's a couple of paragraphs to pay attention to. The first one dealing with how you're not supposed to idle a school bus on school grounds, and it defines what school grounds are, so be sure to read that. You can't idle while loading or unloading passengers, and at the very end it gives a description as for exemptions. You can idle a school bus. Let's look at that. Towards the bottom of that paragraph, you can operate it for defrosting, heating, or cooling equipment to ensure the health and safety of driver or passengers, or to operate auxiliary equipment. Now, that can mean a number of things, but also these days it's hard to not have a school bus running and still load or unload passengers because your red light safety system won't allow you to do that. So pay attention to your instructor when he's telling you how those operate, because it might make a difference. Now this next section tells you how long you can idle a school bus on school property. And it describes basically what we just went over. But it also describes you can idle the bus if you have to run handicap equipment, for example. And then the other conditions that we've already gone over, or to do maintenance on the bus. But read through this and pay attention to it because there are test questions about it. All right, now let's take a look at this next section called visual searching or systematic seeing. And look at those 3 lines. They're very important and you'll see them on the test. More than likely, you've already seen them on your bus clinic test, but let's read through them. The first one is what to look at, what to look for, and where to look. The order is important, so pay attention to the question when it comes along. It may not look like it, but if you read it carefully, you'll be able to tell what it is. All right, so let's take a look at the section that says looking ahead. Now, the book says to look ahead 12 to 15 seconds of travel time. That could be, as it says, a quarter mile on highway, maybe a block in town or city driving. But look far enough ahead so you can identify these problems. The first one, take a look at them, identify problems. The next one is prepare for trouble, and then decide how to avoid the problem. Check for anything that might keep you from making a proper change and for taking the right action. Just get in the habit of looking further ahead. Now let's take a closer look at stopping at intersections. After you stop, move forward slowly so that you have time to stop again while you're looking in both directions. And the order is look to the left first, and then look to the right, and then look to the left again before you move forward, because to the left will be oncoming traffic. Make sure both lanes are clear before you cross the intersection. Now, as far as your mirrors go, it's important for you to adjust them properly so that you can see all around the bus. Some of them, like the crossover mirrors, are specifically designed for certain buses, depending on your state statute. You can check out Chapter 10 of the Commercial Driver's License Manual. It will tell you a lot more about mirrors and what else you need to know. That's all that this book is going to give you. Now look at the section under communication. It's talking about turn signals. We all know that a lot of the motorists on the road today don't use their turn signals. When they're turning or turning in front of you, you quite often don't see them, and sometimes they cut in front of you, and it's very frustrating. So we as commercial drivers need to set an example and communicate with the other drivers what we're going to do. Not only for setting an example, but mostly for safety. Let them know what you're going to do and let them know early. Put your turn signals on early. The Vermont statute says, I think it's 100 feet before a turn. There's other guidelines to use. There's some in this book. Read through that paragraph that I'm talking about. And when you do come to a stop, or if you're passing somebody, keep the signal on until you have made your lane change, until you've turned onto the road. Whatever the case, leave the signal on. Don't cancel it until you're done with your turn. Now, Title 23, Section 1064 gives the authority about turn signals, when to use them. It insists that you do use turn signals when you're turning in a direction. It also gives the 100-foot rule. But make note of that last section, that don't use custom or courtesy made-up signals, like telling somebody it's okay for them to pass you by turning your left directional on, then your right, then your left, then your right. That was handed down through generations. Don't do that. Forget about those. Just follow the law and use your signals properly. Now, when you're slowing down, it's also important to warn people about what you're doing or that you're slowing down. Just tapping your brakes can accomplish this, just like you would on a railroad stop. It's just important to communicate to the other drivers what you're going to do. Now we come to the section of space management or spatial distancing. Read through this section carefully. It's very important. The space around your bus is important to give you enough of it so that you have time to do something, especially in front of your bus. The book will say follow somebody about 4 seconds behind them. Now you need to increase that a little bit if somebody is following you too close, which quite often happens, tailgates. You need to lengthen this distance a little more so that you can slow down more gradually so this guy doesn't slam you in the rear end. So watch the space around you. Give yourself enough time to react. Now, the space behind you is probably the most difficult to manage, but you can anticipate some of this. When you're passing another vehicle, signal slowly and pull in well after you've passed the vehicle. Give them enough space and anticipate tailgaters and what they might be doing. Let's look at some of these tips on how to manage those kinds of tailgaters. Under avoid quick lane changes, use your turn signals early. Like I just said, give yourself enough time in front of the vehicle to pull in. Also, increasing your following distance. Like I said before, if you have to slow down a little, increase the distance to the vehicle in front of you so the guy behind you, he might pass you, but it'll give you extra time to slow down slowly if you have to, so that he doesn't slam you in the rear end. Don't speed up. If you speed up, you're just closing distances on the vehicle in front of you, or you're over the speed limit. The guy's going to stay behind you anyway. Avoid tricks. Don't give him a brake check. Don't tap your brakes to try and mess with him. We don't want to make anybody angry, or we don't want to create a road rage situation. So don't use any tricks. And if the traffic begins to build up behind you, pull over, let them pass, and then continue. It doesn't take that long.
All right, I'm on a charter, so I have some downtime. Let's see if we can get through some of this. Let's talk about distancing side to side, space side by side. Try not to travel like that, not to travel in a bubble or in a group. Traveling side by side, somebody may forget where they are, decide to turn back into the other line, turn right into you. We've all seen something like that happen. It's best to try to find some open road somewhere and pace yourself. Try to stay away from other people. All right, let's consider speed and stopping distance. Look at that paragraph. It describes that it takes 8 times more stopping distance to stop at 50 miles an hour than it does at 15. So controlling your stopping distance or managing it has 3 basic principles, and remember these, and let's go through them one at a time right in the book. Perception distance. This is the distance your vehicle travels from the time your eyes see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. From the time you see it and the time it connects with you, that's your perception distance. How about reaction distance? The distance traveled from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot actually pushes on the brake. That's your reaction time. How much time does it take you to react? What about braking distance? The distance it takes to stop once the brakes are applied. Now remember those 3 things: perception, reaction, and braking. They'll be on the test. Now let's look at road surfaces and managing your speed during certain circumstances. There's a chart there of a number of different things. When it gets slippery, basically, you just have to slow down. Don't rely on your anti-lock brakes. That doesn't help you slow down any faster. It only helps you steer around things. But look at this chart. It has 5 different columns with 4 different rows. Now, I'm not sure anybody expects you to memorize this chart, or at least not a normal person. And I don't think a normal person wrote the question to this test. So I'm going to tell you the question to the test is: under normal driving conditions at 50 miles an hour in a driving rain, you reduce speed to 35 miles an hour. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, well, good morning. I have another charter trip today, but I won't be leaving for a few minutes. So let's see if we can get through some more of this part 3. Look under slippery conditions in the book you should be having with you, identifying slippery surfaces. Now, be sure to read each of these paragraphs, identified as shaded areas, bridges, black ice, just after rain begins, and hydroplaning. Read through those paragraphs and be able to identify each one of those. And then under speed and vision, read those paragraphs carefully. Don't overdrive your visibility range.
especially your high beams. They shoot out about 250 feet. If you're driving 40 miles an hour, you may not be able to stop in time. So check your speed, check your visibility. Be aware of these two paragraphs. There's a test question about it. And then under speed and vision, the faster you go, the less you can see around you, basically is what it's saying. As you're looking straight ahead, you still have side peripheral vision. But the faster you go, that lessens. Your focus is more on front. So just be aware of that. All right, now read through that section called Speed and Traffic. The way it's described there really is not reality, but that's typical of somebody writing this kind of a book. They don't have a grasp on reality and how to relate it to somebody they're actually trying to teach. Everyone knows that the main flow of traffic is usually 5 or 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. That doesn't make it right, and it's not recommended. But read through the bullet points anyway. They are accurate. And just keep your speed limit at 65 miles an hour if you're on an interstate where the posted speed is 65. Let people go by you. It's not a big deal. Just stay at your posted speed limit. Now under turning around, there is a test question about this. You should never back up a bus to turn around if it's at all avoidable. Always try to get off the highway, try to turn around in a circle, but if you do have to back up, choose a side street on the right and follow those bullet points. Read through them carefully so that you know how to do that. Your instructor, when you come to driving, will teach you better on how to do that. But read through them. There is a test question here. Now under texting and handheld devices. Now in Vermont, it is against the law to use your phone or text while driving. This section gives title and section as to the authority of not texting or using handheld devices. There's a lot of times you'll say, what if this, what if that? Read through this section, it'll answer a lot of those questions. I can't tell you how many times I've seen out the bus window down into somebody's vehicle where they have their phone up to their mouth or they're texting and their attention is not on the road. Probably a major reason for most accidents, or a lot of accidents. I've had to lay on my horn once when a lady almost ran through a stop sign, almost hit me, because I could see that she was on her phone and not paying attention to what she was doing. And you'll be able to see them driving a bus. You sit up higher and you'll see them all. So no handheld devices, no texting. Leave your phone alone while you're driving. The section does allow for getting off the road and parking your vehicle even on the side of the road, and certain exemptions as to when you can use it. So read through it carefully and it will answer a lot of questions for you. So that wraps up part 3 of the Vermont School Bus Manual. I hope it was helpful. This is the book that probably most people fail the test on the most. So read through it thoroughly, pay attention to the video, and join me next time for part 4 on School Bus 101.